Jerusalem, summer 1099. The First Crusade has been on the road for nearly 3 years, and the army that finally crests the hills of Judea is no longer the confident host that left Europe. It's a battered, sunburnt, half-starved coalition. Normans, Franks, Flemings, Italians, held together by vows, pride, and the hard momentum of survival. Many have already died at Nicaea, Dorylaeum, and Antioch. Many more have drifted away. But the survivors can see their destination now, a walled city sitting on a ridge, bright stone under a brutal sky, famous in every sermon they ever heard. Jerusalem at this moment is not an isolated relic. It's a strategic prize in a region fractured by rival Muslim powers. The Fatimids in Egypt have recently taken the city, and their governor and garrison understand exactly what's coming. They strengthen defenses, prepare stores, and do what defenders always do when they expect a siege. They try to make time their ally. For the Crusaders, time is the enemy. They do not have endless provisions, endless men, or endless patience. And somewhere to the south and west, an Egyptian relief force could be gathering, ready to march. The Crusaders arrive before the walls on June 7th. What they find is intimidating and, in a strange way, disappointing. Jerusalem is holy, yes, but holiness does not lower walls or open gates. The city has strong fortifications, and the ground around it is unforgiving. Water is scarce. The heat drains men as surely as arrows do. Horses weaken. Pack animals collapse. The army spreads around the city, seeking positions, probing gates, and learning quickly that this cannot be a casual blockade. This must be a decisive assault, and soon. But decisive assaults require tools, and here the Crusaders run into a practical nightmare: wood. You can't build siege towers out of prayers. The areas near Jerusalem have been picked clean. Trees are rare, and the defenders have every reason to deny the attackers materials. So the siege becomes a race not only of courage, but of logistics. Scavenging beams, hauling timber from distant areas, stripping anything that can be repurposed. The Crusaders are forced to think like engineers and supply officers, not just warriors. In the camps, frustration and fear build. This is the emotional pressure cooker of a holy war. Men who believe they are at the finish line, suddenly confronted with the reality that the finish line is a fortress. They have come too far to fail. They have lost too much to turn away. That psychology, desperation wrapped in conviction, will shape everything that happens next, including the choices the Crusaders make once the walls finally give. As the days drag on, leadership matters more than ever. The Crusade has no single king, only powerful rivals: Godfrey of Bouillon, Raymond of Toulouse, Tancred, Robert of Normandy, and others, each with his own followers, honor, and ambitions. They must cooperate to take the city, but they are already thinking about what comes after. And beneath the banners and boasts is a quiet question that no one says aloud yet. If Jerusalem falls, who will rule it? The siege shifts when materials begin to arrive from the coast. Ships reach the port of Jaffa, and suddenly the Crusaders can breathe. Just enough. Timber, iron, rope, and supplies are dragged inland under guard. This is not glamorous work. It's sweating, splintering, hammering, and cursing in the sun. But it's the kind of work that decides sieges. Under intense pressure, the Crusaders build mobile siege towers and protective screens, the great wooden machines that can move men up to wall height while shielding them from missiles. While the builders work, morale becomes a battlefield of its own. The Crusaders know their situation is precarious, and they lean into ritual as a weapon against fear. In early July, they stage a penitential procession around the city, fasting, praying, singing, presenting themselves as an army purified for a sacred task. To modernize, it can look like superstition. To the Crusaders, it is strategy, a way to unify a fracturing coalition, to turn hunger and exhaustion into meaning, to convince themselves that the next assault will not fail. Then, the final push begins. Around July 13th and 14th, siege towers are rolled into position. The defenders fight hard, raining arrows and stones, setting fires, trying to break the engines before they reach the walls. The Crusaders respond with frantic improvisation, wet hides to smother flames, buckets passed hand to hand, men exposed on ladders and platforms. It's close, ugly work, the kind of combat where a single misstep can mean a fall to death, and a single opening can mean the city is lost. On July 15th, the breakthrough comes. In one sector, attackers gain a foothold on the walls. Once a wall is taken, the entire logic of defense collapses. Gates can be opened from within. Defenders panic and retreat. Narrow streets become funnels where small groups can be cut down. What began as a siege becomes a storming of a city, and the rules of war, never gentle in this era, can disintegrate completely. This is where the story turns dark. The capture of Jerusalem is followed by mass killing. In medieval warfare, sack and slaughter were common, especially when a city was taken by assault rather than surrender. But Jerusalem is not an ordinary city in the Crusaders' minds, and that makes the violence more intense, not less. Some leaders attempt gestures of protection. One prominent commander is later associated with offering sanctuary to people sheltering in a mosque. But control is limited once soldiers believe the city is theirs by divine right. The result is bloodshed on a scale that shocks even by the standards of the age. At the same time, not everyone dies in the same way. Some individuals are spared through ransom, some slip away in the chaos, and one crucial figure, the Fatimid governor, chooses negotiation when resistance becomes pointless. He withdraws to the citadel area and bargains with one of the Crusader leaders. Terms are arranged. He is escorted out with his guard. It's a reminder that even in moments of extreme violence, medieval conquest could contain pockets of cold calculation, survival traded for surrender, the logic of power cutting through the madness. When the fighting ebbs, the Crusaders do something that seems almost impossible to reconcile with what has just happened. They turn toward worship. They go to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. They give thanks. For them, the city is both battlefield and altar. Victory and devotion are fused. And yet the hardest question remains unanswered, waiting in the smoke. What happens now that Jerusalem is theirs? The moment Jerusalem falls, the First Crusade changes shape. It stops being a march to a destination and becomes an argument over a prize. The leaders cannot simply celebrate, they must govern. They need food, order, garrisons, and a chain of command. They need to convince soldiers to stay rather than go home. And they need to prepare for the next threat, because the region will not accept this conquest quietly. The politics begin almost immediately. Rivalries that were temporarily buried during the siege rise again. Raymond of Toulouse has power and prestige. Godfrey of Bouillon has reputation and support. Churchmen want influence over the holy places. Knights want lands. Ordinary soldiers want reward for years of suffering. Everyone has a claim, and Jerusalem is too sacred to be treated like a normal conquest, yet too strategic to be left without a ruler. Within days, a decision is reached. Godfrey is chosen as the leading figure in Jerusalem. But even that choice comes wrapped in symbolism. Rather than simply declaring himself king in the city of Christ's passion, Godfrey adopts a title that signals duty more than monarchy, a protector of the Holy Sepulchre. Whether this is pure humility or careful politics, it serves a purpose. It frames the new regime as guardianship, not just seizure. It also buys time, because this government is fragile and needs legitimacy fast. There's another issue, just as urgent as titles. The Crusaders are dangerously few. Many had come for pilgrimage and vow, not for permanent settlement. Some now believe the mission is complete and want to return home with relics, stories, and proof that they reached Jerusalem. Every man who leaves weakens the garrisons and invites counterattack. So the leadership must turn a victory into a sustainable occupation, an incredibly hard task when your army is built on temporary commitment. And the counterattack comes quickly. In August, a Fatimid army marches north from Egypt. The Crusaders cannot wait behind Jerusalem's walls and hope for the best. They march out to meet the threat near Ascalon on August 12th. It is, in many ways, the real test of whether Jerusalem can be held at all. The Crusaders win, and the relief is immense. But the victory also underlines the truth. Jerusalem is not safe just because it has been taken. The region is alive with enemies, and the new rulers will have to fight again and again to keep what they've won. In the months and years that follow, the conquest hardens into something larger, the Kingdom of Jerusalem and the other Crusader states that grow along the Levantine coast and inland routes. These states are not inevitable outcomes of the First Crusade. They are improvisations that become institutions. Castles rise on ridges. Garrisons occupy key roads. Ports matter as much as churches because without sea supply lines, the entire project can starve. Diplomacy, tribute, alliances, and internal quarrels become part of the daily struggle. The most important thing to understand is this: Jerusalem 999 is not a clean ending. It's the birth of a frontier. A holy city has been turned into a political center surrounded by hostile territory. The Crusaders have achieved the miracle they promised their supporters in Europe, but miracles don't feed armies, and sanctity doesn't replace manpower. So the story closes on a contradiction that will define the next chapters of Crusader history. They won the city. They paid for it with blood, others' blood, and their own. And now they face the hardest reality of all. Victory is not the same as security. Jerusalem has been taken, but the struggle has only changed form. Because now they have to hold it, and everyone around them wants it